All right, this is day 2 of our painting techniques, and we are going to be finishing up. Zoom in a little bit here. We're going to finish up on this one, and then we're going to do these bottom 3. Now, because we're doing a wash here and a wash here, we're going to go ahead and do one of these right now. Then we'll come back to the layered and move on to the other one, just to give it a chance to dry. But I will also tell you what a little tip is on this. We are not going to paint to the very edge of where the pencil is, just to eliminate any paint running into other paint. So you are going to need water. You are going to need your brushes. And so here are brushes, water. I have my dabbing cloth, and I've got my paints. So I'm going to do a regular wash just to give you an idea of what that is. And a regular wash is meant to be a solid color over the entire area. And in order to get it solid, I'm going to pre-moisten the paper. The reason I'm pre-moistening the paper is to allow the paint to move and not absorb immediately. So I'm going to go ahead and just put a layer. And again, you'll notice I'm not going to the edge where the pencils are. I'm leaving a little bit of a space in between that. Then I'm going to make sure that I am taking plenty of water, and I'm going to find my color. I'm going to do orange for this. And again, I'm going to put a little more water on there. And I'm just putting a layer of orange. I'm going to go a little bit darker so you can see on the screen here. Now, the wash is meant to be a solid color. It is meant to be light enough that we can see through and we can see a little bit of the paper. And so I'm going to dab a little bit of water, a little bit of paint, just to continue making this one area a solid color of orange. And I'm just going to gently go over this just a couple of times. We're not going to like overwork the paper, otherwise it's going to get like little balls of fiber from the paper, and we don't want that. Now, this is pretty good overall, but you can even see on the screen where it's puddling just a tiny bit, and my goal is to make this as even as possible. So what I did is I dabbed my brush off on my rag, and I'm going to use my brush just to kind of sponge up or absorb some of those areas that are just a little darker. And this won't take a long time to dry, but again, our goal is to have a solid area of one color, and you can use any color you would like. Okay, so that's my wash. While that is drying, I'm going to go ahead and move on to this, or go back to this layered one. And so with this layered one, I'm going to do 3 colors going this way. And I'm going to say you can choose whatever color. I'm going to do the secondaries just because I have the primaries here. But I wanted you to start with a solid stripe of the primaries. And so now, again, I'm going to load my brush with a decent amount of paint. It's fairly thick. So I'm going to take a little water. And I'm keeping this right in the tip of the brush here. But I'm going to put a layer of green across. And the goal of the layered look is to see what colors look like when you put a layer on top of it, because it really does change the red. If you could see this red, it is almost a maroonish color, kind of a maroon or a darker, deeper red right there. I keep touching it, and it's changing. Now there's a blue-green that I could use, say, if I wanted to do water. So there's my green stripe. I'm now going to do the same thing, but I'm going to do violet. And again, I'm loading my brush with a decent amount of paint. Okay, and I will swipe it across. Okay, and the last one is orange. What you cannot see on the camera is that I'm cleaning my brush in the water and then dabbing it off on the towel. There should be at least 1, if not 2 towels per table. So now I've cleaned my brush out, and I can grab some orange, and I'm going to swipe my orange across. Okay, so that's it for the layered. All right, the gradated wash. We will now move down. The gradated wash is going to be similar to my orange wash that I have right here. But the difference is now I'm going to have a dark fading into light. I'm going to approach it the same exact way where I pre-moisten the paper. I'm not going to the edge where the pencil is, but I'm going to pre-moisten the paper. Then I'm going to take a color, and I'm going to go ahead and do this in orange so you can see the difference between the wash and the gradated wash, but you do not have to do the same color. I'm just doing that for the sake of the video. So I'm loading up my brush. It's got plenty of water, plenty of paint, and I'm putting it towards the top. I'm really going to load up the top with some heavier orange. And you can see because my paper is wet, it's already starting to kind of run down a little bit. And that's a good thing. Okay, I'm going to do one more swipe of orange right there. Now, I'm going to clean my brush out of the orange. Okay? But I'm still keeping plenty of water in my brush, and I'm just going to coax this orange down to the point where it gets white. It fades into white. And that's it. There's the difference between a wash and a gradated wash. Last one for today is going to be the resist. Now the resist is simply using a white crayon to put some sort of a design, and oftentimes for this project I'll have students that want to create like stars. So I'm going to put some stars in here. If you had an alien with white antennas and you want to leave the white of the paper showing through, but you're not having a large area, then this might also work for that. So I'm just putting a couple little areas that kind of look like stars. And then I'm going to do basically a wash over it. So I'm going to dip my brush, pick up a color. This time I'm not pre-moistening the paper though, I really don't need to. Let me go with a little darker so you can see what's going on here. You can see it's resisting. The darker the color, the more obvious the resist is. The other thing I want to point out that I could have done a little bit better on is I have thicker crayon here than I do up here. And you can kind of see the little snowflakes, but they're much more obvious right here. So press harder on your crayon if you want it to stand out more. And so this is the resist. All right? Now, one last thing. You are to do each of these techniques because you are going to be graded on each of these techniques that you did them properly. So let's just say, for example, you did this wet into wet and it really didn't mix together, or it's like one solid color and it looks blue and not blue-violet like I have, or red-violet or whatever else, or your dry brush wasn't very good. You can work on the other side over here and just make a square or just do an area and say, okay, I'm going to redo my wet into wet. But I do expect to see the layered look of colors, the wet into wet, the dry brush, the gradated wash where there's a difference between this, and then the resist. And if anything needs to be redone, you do it on the other side of your sketchbook. I'll just point out also that my gradated wash here was kind of drying uneven. So I'm going to take my brush and just kind of wiggle it around and make that line disappear. So that is it. That is the your project or your assignment is to complete these.